Mama. Mama. I'm hurt. Help, Ada screamed at the top of her lungs, clutching her leg as tears streamed down her face. Her basket of firewood lay scattered on the forest floor, and a sharp pain burned through her calf. She could still see the snake slithering away into the underbrush, its dark scales blending into the shadows of the trees. She tried to stand but collapsed, her leg throbbing as the venom began to spread. Ada was the daughter of the poorest farmer in the village, from a man who had died when she was barely 8. Left to fend for themselves, Ada and her blind mother had grown accustomed to a life of hardship. Today, the firewood she had gone to gather was meant to cook the single yam they had left in the house, and there was no one else to do the task. "Stay strong, Ada," she whispered to herself through gritted teeth, her vision blurring. But her strength was fading fast. She had never felt so afraid. Alone in the middle of the forest, miles from the village, the only sound was the rustling of leaves and her own labored breathing. As she lay on the ground, a shadow appeared over her. It wasn't a villager, she was certain of that. It was someone, or something, she had never seen before. Ada's heart pounded as the figure stepped closer. It was a man cloaked in a strange robe that shimmered faintly in the sunlight filtering through the trees. His face was obscured, but his voice, deep and calm, echoed in the stillness of the forest. "Do not move," he said, crouching beside her. His hands hovered over her leg, and to Ada's shock, he wasn't holding any herbs or tools. Instead, his palms glowed faintly, emitting a strange warmth. "Who are you?" Ada stammered, her fear mingling with confusion. The pain in her leg eased slightly as his hands moved over the bite. "I am one who listens to the cries of the desperate," he replied cryptically. "You were bitten by a viper. The venom is spreading, but it has not reached your heart. You are fortunate I was nearby." Ada wanted to ask more, but her head swam, and exhaustion began to take over. She forced herself to focus. "Please, help me. My mother is waiting for me. She needs me." The man tilted his head, as though studying her. "Your devotion is admirable, child. But there is a price for every life saved. Are you willing to pay it?" Ada's breath hitched. What kind of price?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed a finger on her forehead, and suddenly, Ada saw visions, a towering tree bathed in golden light, its roots stretching deep into the earth, and a strange, glowing fruit hanging from its branches. "The price is a choice," the man finally said, his voice echoing inside her mind. "Save yourself, or save your mother. The forest will guide you, but beware, nothing comes without sacrifice." Before she could respond, the warmth from his hands disappeared, and Ada gasped as she realized the man was gone. But in her place, the faint golden trail glimmered on the forest floor, leading into the shadows. Ada knew she didn't have much time. Her legs still throbbed faintly, and the weight of the man's words pressed heavily on her. Would she follow the trail and risk whatever awaited, or would she try to crawl back to the village and hope for help? The decision was hers, but either way, the forest was watching. Ada clenched her teeth and forced herself to sit up, her breathing labored as the golden trail glimmered faintly before her. The strange man's words echoed in her mind, filling her with a mixture of fear and determination. "Save yourself, or save your mother." Her mother's face appeared in her mind's eye, tired, fragile, and blind, waiting at home, trusting that Ada would return with the firewood they needed to survive another day. But what if she couldn't make it back? What if she failed? With trembling hands, Ada gripped a nearby branch and used it to pull herself up. The pain in her leg was bearable now, though her strength was waning. Her gaze followed the glowing trail stretching deeper into the forest. The path seemed alive, as if it were beckoning her forward. "I can't fail, Mama," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I have to do this." Leaning on the makeshift crutch, she hobbled forward, each step a battle against the growing numbness in her body. The trees seemed to close in around her, the golden light becoming her only guide. She had no sense of how much time had passed when she arrived at a clearing, the place unlike anything she had ever seen. In the center stood the tree from her vision. Its bark shimmered like polished gold, and its branches stretched toward the heavens, heavy with glowing fruit. The air was thick with the scent of honey and earth, and the forest seemed unnaturally quiet, as though holding its breath. Ada approached cautiously, her eyes fixed on the fruit. It pulsed with a soft light, and as she drew closer, she felt a strange warmth wash over her. The pain in her leg faded, replaced by a curious strength. But then, a voice rang out, not the deep, calming voice of the man she'd met earlier, but something harsher, colder. "Not so fast, child." Ada spun around to see another figure stepping out from the shadows. This one was cloaked in black, with eyes like burning coals. Unlike the man who had helped her, this figure exuded menace. "You think the fruit is yours for the taking," the figure sneered. "Do you even know the cost of plucking it from the tree?" Ada tightened her grip on the branch she was using for support. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure chuckled darkly. "What I want is irrelevant. What matters is your choice. Take the fruit, and you'll have the power to save your mother, but at a price you cannot fathom. Walk away, and you may live, but your mother will not." Tears welled in Ada's eyes. "What kind of price?" The figure stepped closer, its shadow looming over her. "The fruit will heal, but it will also bind you to this forest forever. You will no longer belong to your village, your mother, or even yourself. You will become a guardian of the tree, a servant to its will." Ada's heart raced. The glow of the fruit seemed brighter now, almost calling to her, but the figure's words chilled her to the bone. Could she make such a sacrifice? Could she abandon her mother to save her life and the little hope they had left? The decision pressed on her like a weight, then the golden tree seemed to shimmer in expectation. Ada's hands trembled as she looked back at the golden tree, its fruit glowing like tiny suns against the darkened sky. Her heart raced with the weight of her decision. A life for a life, a soul for a soul. The figure's words echoed in her mind. She couldn't fail her mother, but the thought of being trapped in the forest forever filled her with dread. She glanced at her injured leg. The venom was creeping up her body, and she knew time was running out. She steadied her breath and stared into the shadowy figure's fiery eyes. "What if I don't take the fruit? Is there no other way?" she asked, desperation lacing her voice. The figure smirked, circling her like a predator. "Another way? Perhaps, but every choice comes at a cost. If you walk away, you will live, but your mother's blindness will deepen into illness, and her life will be short. Take the fruit, and you will heal her entirely, but you'll belong to the forest forever. No visits, no return, no goodbye." Ada's chest tightened. The thought of her mother alone, sick and helpless, tore at her. But what good would it do if Ada was gone, enslaved to this cursed forest for eternity? "Why must there be a price?" she shouted, frustration boiling over. "Haven't we suffered enough?" The figure laughed coldly. "The world is a balance, child. Pain and joy, loss and gain. The forest does not care for tears. It only cares for balance." Ada fell to her knees, overwhelmed. She closed her eyes, trying to find clarity in the chaos of her mind. In her memory, she saw her mother's gentle smile, heard her soothing voice as she hummed lullabies to calm Ada's fears. Then a new thought struck her. Her mother had always said, "God watches over us, even in the darkest times." Could this forest be testing her faith? Could she survive without giving in to the forest's demands? Ada took a deep, shaky breath and stood, leaning heavily on her crutch. She turned to the shadowy figure. "If the forest cares for balance, then it can find another way to maintain it. My life is mine, and my faith is stronger than fear." The figure's smirk faded into a snarl. Foolish child.